Hi everyone, this is Dr. Shinjini. Today I am sharing a small part of a large lecture which I had presented a few days back on the autonomic nervous system. So this part will only be on pelvic pain and what are its neuronal components and how do we think about pelvic pain. So this lecture will deal a little bit with anatomy as well as the physiology related to pelvic pain and how for us as physicians should we think about it from a medical management point of view, also from a surgical management point of view.
And pelvic pain in reference to women especially is very common and a very debilitating complaint. This is especially when there is chronic pelvic pain, and chronic pelvic pain, as we all know, has a prevalence of almost 4 to 15% in a gynecologist's practice, and can be a very difficult condition to treat. So, whatever be the cause of the pelvic pain, let us understand the autonomic nervous system involved in it and what is the root of this pelvic pain. This will help us troubleshoot the causation also better, and will also help us understand the symptoms of the patient better, and thereby be able to treat her better. So remember, the pelvic pain is basically carried by two mechanisms. The first and the most easiest to understand is via the fibers of the pudendal nerve. As we all know by now that this is the main nerve of the pelvis and is actually responsible for a large number of painful conditions. Repeating again, the pudendal nerve originates in the sacral plexus. S2, 3, and 4 are its root values. And then the passage of the nerve is that it exits the pelvis through the greater sciatic foramen and then enters into the perineal area via the pudendal canal, which is also known as the Alcock's canal, and then it has three main branches. These are its terminal branches, and these are the inferior rectal nerve, which will supply the vicinity of the area of the let us say the anal triangle, and then the other two branches are the perineal nerve and the dorsal nerve of the clitoris in the case of the female. These two nerves, that is the perineal nerve and the dorsal nerve of the clitoris, will innervate the pelvic structures and the external genitalia. So, also it is of importance to note here that the pudendal nerve will provide motor innervation to both the anal and the urethral sphincters, as we have seen so many times in the past slides. It will also innervate the perineal muscles of the bulbocavernosus and the bulbospongiosus. Injury to this pudendal nerve, its compression, as is the case we see in pudendal neuralgia, is therefore a cause of debilitating painful conditions. And one of the common example is prolonged labor, wherein the nerve can get compressed in the pudendal canal. Sometimes even cutting the incision that is made in the mediolateral episiotomy that we make for easing out labor, these can cut the perineal branches and can lead to painful conditions. Now, once we have understood the somatic innervation and the role of the pudendal nerve in causing painful conditions, let us now basically understand the concept of the visceral pain. Now, visceral pain, which is mediated by autonomic nervous system in the pelvis, basically the afferents or the visceral afferents will travel to the dorsal root ganglia via the sympathetic or the parasympathetic efferents. So the afferent nerves basically ride on the efferent nerves in a piggyback manner, and they either reach the dorsal root ganglia of the thoracolumbar region if they are climbing on the sympathetic trunk, or they may reach the dorsal root ganglia of the sacral part of the cord if they are traveling via the parasympathetic fibers. So, the afferents or the pain carrying sensations travel upwards via the efferent nerves only, that is, they take their help, they get relayed onto the dorsal root ganglia, and then the painful sensation is transferred to the brain via the appropriate tracts. So, they may be the spinothalamic tract, etc. Now, it is important to remember that for the pelvis, it is basically the parasympathetic system which contributes majorly to carry the painful sensations upwards. By this I do not mean that the sympathetics do not take painful sensations at all. There is a dual type of movement upwards of the sensory afferents. However, for the deeper pelvis especially, the parasympathetics play a more important role in carrying the nociceptive or the painful sensations. One way to quickly understand it more easily is that those parts of the pelvic structures that are below the peritoneal layer are generally innervated by the parasympathetics when it comes to taking the painful sensations, and those parts that are up above the peritoneal covering are taken by the sympathetics. Remember that the cervix is one region, the uterine cervix is one special region which has a predominantly dual type of afferent pathway, that is, pain from the cervical region will travel via both the sympathetic afferents as well as the parasympathetic afferents. Now, if this is clear till now, let us see how the pelvic structures behave in visceral pain. Now see, the pelvic painful conditions which actually may provoke pain can be any pathology which is inflammatory, any pathology which causes a compression on the nerves, let us say neuropathic. Sometimes pain may be psychogenic, and sometimes, rather many times, there is a mixed etiology. One of the important things to remember here is that from level T10 to L1, the visceral afferent fibers which travel upwards from the uterus, the adnexa and the cervix, they also supply certain other organs like the sigmoid colon, the rectum and even some parts of the lower ileum. Thus, pelvic sensations can originate in any of these closely related structures. Now, this is a beautiful diagram of the pelvis, the sagittal section, and as I already told you, you can see that the sensory axons innervating the lower pelvis, especially the lower part of the vagina, the bladder areas, etc., they travel in the via the pelvic plexus, and you can see that these afferents are going to the dorsal root ganglion of the segments S2, 3 and 4. So, they basically terminate in the spinal cord sacral part. You can also see in the same diagram that the pudendal nerve is supplying the very lower extreme part of the perineal areas and the external sphincters, and the sensations are again traveling to the dorsal root ganglion. Basically, the dorsal root ganglion is the sensory ganglion. So, all the sensations, the afferent sensations will travel there. Notice that the upper parts of the pelvic structures, which are generally by the rule of thumb above the peritoneal reflection, they are being carried, the pain from these regions is being carried via the hypogastric nerve, and which will again reach the dorsal root ganglion, but this time of the thoracolumbar region between segments T10 to L1. Remember again, and I will repeat this, the region surrounding the cervix represents actually a transitional zone and is innervated by fibers that travel in both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nerves. So now let us see the clinical aspect of this, and the main clinical aspect that we use is the paracervical block. That is a common block which is given, and this is a very effective block because it will act on the sacral plexus, and as you all know from what we have just discussed, the sacral plexus is responsible for most of the painful sensations perceived by the organs below the level of the peritoneal reflection. So the pain of the cervical dilatation is reduced or removed via the paracervical block. This also helps us in performing a number of minor procedures like performing a dilatation and curettage. This is also useful to us when we are passing the hysteroscope, and therefore it is highly recommended. That is, the paracervical block is highly recommended as it can actually help abolish the parasympathetic afferents which are or the sensory afferents which are moving up. Now see, pain in the gynecological region can be experienced due to several factors. So in our day-to-day practice, it can be cervical instrumentation when we dilate the cervical canal, especially when the instrument is negotiating the internal os. The uterus has again the fundic part and the body part of the uterus can feel the pain sensations via the sympathetic afferents, and this is generally experienced when the uterus gets distended, and this pain is via the sympathetic pathway. So now we know that from our experience that the type of hysteroscope, the diameter of the hysteroscope, all these things are therefore very very important. The smaller the hysteroscope that you use, the lesser will be the discomfort, and this is probably one of the main rationales behind the office hysteroscopy using the lesser diameter hysteroscopes, the Bertocci type hysteroscope. Also, another small point at this stage is that whenever there are operative procedures that damage the endometrial wall, these also carry the painful sensations, and therefore this is also one aspect of pain that you must understand. So what are the main causes of pain experienced? It is the navigation of the os, the cervical os, number one. Number two is the distension perceived by the uterus, and number three is the painful fibers at the interface between the endometrium and the myometrium, and these will also be perceived as pain by the patient. Most of the cervical navigation can be blocked, or pain via these routes can be blocked via the paracervical block. Therefore, a last point that I want to add here is that the region of the thorax, the abdomen, and also the upper pelvis, as I already told you, that is covered by the peritoneum. Here the pain is mainly transmitted via the sympathetics, and these ride in a piggyback manner back to the spinal cord to travel up. The stretch from the thorax, the abdomen and the upper pelvis may sometimes be carried via the parasympathetics. So this is the kind of peculiar difference between the lower pelvis and the rest of the abdomen and pelvis. The lower pelvis, I repeat, not covered by peritoneum. Both pain sensations as well as stretching sensations are carried primarily via the parasympathetics. So visceral pain in the region of the abdomen mainly influenced by sympathetic pathways. So this is with regards to the pain. Now we will go ahead and see how the pain is perceived in different organs even when the pathology is elsewhere. So basically this is due to the crosstalk that occurs during innervation, and we will just see how this happens. So let us understand the mechanism of chronic pain or persistent pain. Now basically the reason why any individual experiences a persistent chronic pain is the concept of visceral cross sensitization. Now this means that whenever there is a diseased pelvic organ, there are organs adjacent to it which may be normal. However, the visceral interactions between the gastrointestinal, the urinary, and the reproductive systems will act, and this will lead to the interpretation of pains in the general area supplied. So, you can look at this diagram. This is a beautiful diagram to show the mechanism of visceral cross sensitization. If you see the upper part of this diagram, so if you see the above diagram, that is the A part of the diagram, you will see that the ATP released by the neuron which is innervating that inflamed uterus. For example, just imagine that this patient has PID, so the uterus is inflamed, and the neurons innervating the inflamed uterus will act on the neighboring neuron, and this neighboring neuron which supplies the colon, for example, gets sensitized, and therefore in PID you may have colon related symptoms of colicky pain, diarrhea, and distension of the lower abdomen, etc. Now if you see the part B of this diagram, you will see the second mechanism, and in this mechanism you will notice that the same neuron innervates the uterus as well as the colon. And for example, again of the PID, if there is a uterine inflammation, this same neuron directly sensitizes the neuron to colonic distension. So this is how the crosstalk mechanism acts. There are a lot of complex explanations for this. However, for the purpose of our understanding, we need to just know this much. Finally, to make the whole situation more and more complex, there is a lot of central nervous system input and output, and higher centers of the brain can modulate the perceptions via the descending pathways, and therefore pain is a highly complex mechanism. Stress and anxiety as a consequence of pain persistence also play a lot of relevant role in the modulation of these descending pathways from the higher centers. I would just like to end this part by another example of crosstalk, and we have seen that in patients, there have been studies rather, that in patients with endometriosis, there is vaginal hyperalgesia, and this also causes a lot of increased bladder motility in otherwise healthy bladders, and is therefore also responsible for the painful bladder conditions. So this example of crosstalk because of disease affecting one organ and therefore also producing symptoms in the neighboring viscera is due to this visceral crosstalk. There is a lot of work which is being done on this, and we will see this in the next two slides. So this slide is just to show you this interesting paper. You can go through it in case you want to know more, and this speaks on organ crosstalk in reference to the pelvic pain. Finally, as I mentioned just before, so endometriosis is an enigmatic disease. None of us have been able to understand why some patients do not perceive any pain at all despite having severe disease, and vice versa. And this is an interesting talk and a paper presented by Dr. Axel Foreman, and this is put a lot of light into the situation, and it is a good read. Thank you.